he's an advocate of paradigm shifts in mindset, and he's an economist in the classical liberal tradition. I'm sure he will give us some more insight as to what classical liberal tradition means. He's technically trained in Austrian economics. I'm sure there's something special about that one too. And he's been inspired to write more books apart from this. I think there are 4 books to his credit, so he's really a master at it. In his book, not only does he theorize, he practicalizes his assertions and makes us appreciate our place in the grand scheme. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our resource person, Mr. Bruce Koerber. Shall we all just give a little applause from wherever we are, and then we can begin. Okay, I've given mine here. So participants, you are also very much welcome to this discussion. We appreciate taking off your time this particular Saturday evening. You could be somewhere else enjoying yourselves, but you are here to be inspired and to be enlightened. So we shall begin right about now. Now, I will kindly ask us to mute our microphones if we are in places where we could potentially have noise. So kindly mute your microphone. Do raise your hands in the section indicated, and then we attend to you. Or you can as well drop your question or contribution in the comment section. That will be read to our resource person, and you attend to it too. So kindly note that we are dealing with 2 chapters. The first chapter, imagining the economy as a whole, and chapter 2, watching your dream come true. It will be a 30 to 40 minute session, and I believe our guest speaker is ready. I'm particularly interested if Mr. Bruce, are we here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. So we shall begin. I'm very much interested in the choice of the topic. That's the title, The Divine Economy Model. And to begin with, I would be glad if you can just throw some light on the background to the choice of this title, Mr. Koerber.
Yeah, well, we're all potentially entrepreneurs. We're either latent or active entrepreneurs. And when I was studying economics at Auburn University, which is where Mises Institute was, one of the things that I saw in economics was there was a disconnect between what's considered scientific and what's not considered scientific. There really is, in my understanding of the world around us, is that religion and science are in harmony. They're not in conflict. And so when science doesn't incorporate both of those, that was, as an entrepreneur, I was alert to the possibility that there's something I could do to contribute to help bring those back together again. You mentioned that I'm an economist in classical liberalism tradition, and that is the tradition in classical liberalism, this harmony of science and religion. And then later on, economics developed in that matrix of classical liberalism. And then at some point, the trend pushed it out of that and made it move in a different direction, and then it kind of started to exclude the very vital part of the discovery process that took place that made economics even come into being, because it emerged out of that environment of the belief that science and religion were in harmony. So this is kind of the divine economy theory and the divine economy model is a kind of a rebirth of classical liberalism in this day.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So now we get the understanding that it is a fusion of the religious aspects of economics and the scientific aspect of economics. We cannot separate these two. They are interdependent and are supposed to be working together. That's the sense of understanding I'm getting.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and also we talked about, you mentioned that I was an Austrian economist. So the thing that's unique about the Austrian school of thought is that it uses a different methodology. It uses the methodology that was used in classical liberalism. It uses a different methodology from most economics other than Austrian economics, and that is it recognizes that humans are subjective. You know, and so there has to be and so because they're subjective, the what's considered the scientific model or scientific approach doesn't have a place for subjectivism. You know, it's looking at it's a very empirical kind of approach, and so with the Austrian view of humans being subjective, there's a different methodology. It's called the methodology of subjectivism. That's what all of Austrian economics is built upon, and so that's really an interesting segue into what we were just talking about, because when you think about that, so you know, one of the aspects of that is that we're all individuals. You know, we're unique individuals. We're subjective. We make decisions based on what we know, from what we've learned, and from our life experiences. That's how we take action from that point of view. So, and everybody's different. So that's a very it complicates things for the empiricists, because they just say ceteris paribus, everybody's the same, but they're not the same, they're all different. And so that's the beauty of Austrian economics. But here's this entrepreneurial aspect that I've noticed is that even though we're subjective, so that's true, all human beings are subjective. What was missing was human beings are spiritual too. So this is what the divine economy theory does. It uses the methodology of subjectivism, recognizing that people are subjective, but it also includes the fact they're not only subjective, they're spiritual. So that's what takes it to a different place than other approaches to economics.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm just looking at page 4, and I see the skeletal structure of the divine economy. Essentially, you just mentioned something I wanted to raise there: human as a spiritual being. Now, I was expecting to see the divine himself, or the ultimate reality, however we conceive him, to be sitting at the top, directing events and all. Can you just explain this little structure, the concept behind this, why the transformation is rather at the top, and law order on the side?
Well, there's really no hierarchy there. It's just they're just those are the 4 key aspects of the human reality that have the possibility of interacting with the divine economy. Now, if you one of the things I want to make a little bit clear is that, you know, in the economic literature that probably everybody's familiar with, they've heard the term economic equilibrium. Yes. And, you know, that's what kind of balances supply and demand and all these things. And so it's it's this invisible force that's nobody's actually making it happen. It's just happening. And, you know, you make too much of something and then the price goes down. You know, it's just this automatic mechanism that's taking place, but it's inherent in the system and is spoken of in terms of using the term economic equilibrium. But it doesn't seem like there was much interest or ability or whatever to try to penetrate deeper to find out what's behind this force of economic equilibrium, you know. And so to a person who doesn't believe in God,
yes,
they still recognize the power of economic equilibrium. So I could speak to those individuals and say, well, the divine economy, it's just another name for this equilibrium force. It's what's behind it's what's moving. It's sort of that invisible hand of laissez-faire. That's the divine economy is that behind it. But I don't really think that I have to speak to atheists. I mean, I can, but in my mind, the real way of describing that is that it's God is the power behind all of creation. He's the power behind the creation of human beings, and we're created uniquely because of that. And so, and here's the other point I want to make: if there weren't humans, if there were no humans on the planet Earth, there wouldn't be an economy.
Exactly.
The economy only exists because humans exist. So the economy is part of that same creation. So, it is, it's that, so just like every human being has those potentialities within them that basically constitute life. That's what the economy is constituted by this equilibrium power, which is granted to it as part of the creation of human beings and as part of this creation we have. What's enabling. So here's another thing. So we are individuals, right? But our characteristics are we like being with other people. We like to learn. So we're social beings, okay? And the reason we're social beings is because we are, and what it's this creation of the economy. That see, the economy is where voluntary social is done. It comes about through voluntary cooperation, and so that's part of our identity as a creature is that we are social beings, and we're social beings because we are part of the economy, and the economy is part of that creation that was made when that's what humans are like, and we can't not we need to realize that and flourish in it. Yeah.
Great. I think I'm being educated here a lot. I don't know for the others. That leads us to the next diagram.
Okay.
Yes, that's diagram 2C. You may have given some brief about the role of the divine, but I want some clarification regarding the role of the divine. We cannot be able to explain in explicit terms to an atheist or someone who does not believe in God the role of the divine. But there should, as you mentioned, the invisible hand. What really is that invisible hand's role in the divine economy?
I think it is. So with regards to 2C, as you're asking,
Yes.
Well, 2C basically what that was in the development of the model is it went from the understanding that all these elements, these four elements plus the center, which was the divine economy, which was that equilibrium force, whatever, they were all kind of connected and interacting. And then the 2C is basically where I started to pull from economic knowledge and economic literature the significant pieces of economics, and I placed them where they made sense in that model. So, like for instance, law, where property rights is the foundational concept in law, so it was placed there. And then, like for order, market, that's the economic expression of that order. And property rights is the economic expression and foundation of law. So basically, I just started to add those economic components to the model at that point, built on the fact that it is all-encompassing and driven providentially. And the really important thing here is if you look at 2C, the one element is essential element is human spirit, but where that it doesn't ever it never appears in the world until the human acts, and we're like that. We're created to be like that. So it's not anything profound that we do that, but that's where it expresses it. The human spirit expresses itself through action, and so that's what energizes and is part of the process of the economy.
Okay, that's great. That leads us to page 11. We are looking at the fifth dimension. You posited 4 points, and I'm very much interested in those 4 points. So you say, see what happens when you take these action steps. Be a friend of the entrepreneurs and become an entrepreneur. Appreciate and use capital. Put it into action by way of savings and investment. Do what you can to safeguard property rights. Celebrate the transformative power of the economy. Now, I want you to give some attention to these 4 points, action steps, because for me, I think it's fundamental to being able to take over your economy, as you are going to talk about. You will be talking about later in chapter 2.
Yeah, well, one of the things that the Austrian school understands, and it's because they recognize individuals and they recognize that people are subjective, but they also know that that the economy, that one graph, I think the one on actually 2C, which is on page 9, that's where it's introduced the idea of entrepreneurship. And the reason that's introduced as a key element, because that's a dimension by itself. So it was a 2-dimensional model, then we submerged it in the water and it made it a 3-dimensional model, and that was surrounded by entrepreneurship, either latent or active entrepreneurship. And that basically is a dimension all by itself. And why is it a dimension all by itself? It's because entrepreneurship is what drives the economy. It's when people exercise. So everyone is entrepreneurs. So let me mention this again. We are created a certain way, and one of the ways that humans are created is whether how developed they are and how far they get is one thing, but we're all seekers after truth. That's what humans are. They're seekers after truth. They're looking for ways to improve their life, things that are good for them. They're always seeking truth in that sense. And so that's what this entrepreneurial spirit is. And when it's actually expressed in the economy, it's a more developed kind of a seeking after truth, where as you see there's a discrepancy in how things are produced, and you can do it better, so you go in that direction. So that would be an entrepreneurial step. But the point is that it's so important that it actually has one of those dimensions all to itself, is entrepreneurship. So that's why on that first sentence there it says, be a friend, entrepreneurs, and become an entrepreneur. First of all, be a friend, because that's what's making the economy work. It's the entrepreneurs. Nobody, the government people think they're doing it. They're actually hindering, but what's really driving the economy forward is always is entrepreneurship. People finding better ways to do things or whatever. That's what's driving it forward. So you want to be a friend to entrepreneurs, and then also because everyone is either active or latent, that's something that can be developed within yourself. You can start to develop entrepreneurial skills. So that would be why that you either become a friend or you become an entrepreneur for that first. And then here's another thing that's, again, the strength of Austrian economics is that this second step here, talking about capital, that if you look at the diagram, the appendage or the part that leads to transformation is the capital structure. So if there's any and so everyone is, I think, would agree that transformation is a good thing. You're getting better. The world, the surroundings are getting better. This is a transformation that's taking place, and for that to happen in the economy, it's capital that moves the economy forward. And the reason it does that is because capital is another way of expressing capital is goods for the future. So if there's going to be any future, if nobody's looking at you're not trying to make the past better, because you can't. It's done. And the present is what it is. When a person is wanting to transform, they're looking forward. They're looking, I want to be better tomorrow than I am today. I want to have a nicer pair of shoes tomorrow than I have today. Whatever that's the transformation that's being sought. And for that to happen, it's the capital structure that enables that to happen. And so that's why that's put in. And so the Austrian school of thought puts strong emphasis on the beauty and the power of entrepreneurship and the beauty and the power of capital. And so that's where it says put it into action by saving or investing, and that's what leads to goods for the future. Okay, so the next one was do what you can to safeguard property rights, because property rights in the divine economy theory, there's an identity, a critical identity that's identified, that's stated in the divine economy, and that is property rights are human rights and human rights are property rights. That's in the same sentence. They're like the mirror images of each other. And so and what we're talking about humans. The economy is for humans. And so property rights are human rights. And, so you can't, those are essential. And nothing, and then, so we just talked about capital. You cannot have capital if you don't have property rights, because nobody's gonna to save or invest if it's just going to be stolen away from them, if they don't have any property rights, if it's just free to somebody else. So that's why that's so important. So anything that can be done to safeguard property rights, positive. And then the last one was celebrate the transformative power of the economy. Somebody's got to
kindly hold on. There is some noise in the background. I'm trying to figure out who.
Bruce, you can mute him directly.
Okay. Mr. Nathaniel, kindly. The participant who has the noise in the background.
Looks like it's a manual.
Manual tackle, yes.
Emmanuel Shelfo, mute yourself. Bruce, if you can make me back the admin so that I can just mute him.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So then the last part was to celebrate the transformative power of the economy. And so
Yes.
that's what we were talking about with both the entrepreneurs that were transforming it, the capital is transforming it, and that's what the economy is for. It's for an ever advancing economy. And that's basically transformation of individuals and all their surroundings. And so celebrating that is what basically you're appreciating the economy and that's what it does. So you celebrate it. Yeah.
Great. I'm happy about that elucidation. That would lead us to chapter 2 and the title, Watching Your Dreams Come True. Now, it seems as if it is such a beautiful thing, or it's an easy action to take. I mean, going through everything. But when you look at the model, the diagram in particular, we see the human factor that really can militate against such dreams coming to pass. Typically, we are looking at things like law or the institutional arrangements. As you put in there quickly, if I may reference that diagram again, we have law and order, that particular section, and the market. This area seems to have the ability to militate progress. How is that possible? How are we going to see our dreams actualize when such interventions are creating problems for us? I don't know if my question is clear.
Are you asking in relative to the first chapter or to the second chapter?
Perhaps the second chapter, but I think there's. Let's just look at it in the context of the first chapter.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, the thing is, I think the really important part is just helping people understand that that the economy is interfered with by intervention.
Yes.
Even those who say, "Oh, we're doing it for you," the more they understand what the economy really is like and how it operates, the less likely they're going to say, well, they're going to help educate that person who thinks that way, or they're going to resist that intervention because they know it better. As far as, I think what we do know, though, is this equilibrium. So just to put it back in terms of God, yes. Humans they're no match for God. I mean, they have no power compared to God. So in regards to the equilibrium, economic equilibrium, all the interventions and stuff that are interfering with the functioning of this divine institution, the economy, as soon as it stops, the economy, the equilibrium power of the economy corrects it and cleans itself. It cleans itself. And the economy cannot be destroyed no matter how severe the intervention. People have to endure the problems, but eventually the economy will arise and emerge and take over. So I think that what we were talking about there on that line there, that law and order, where the strength there is, if we have a situation where there is a lot of problems because those are in the economy, the individuals through their efforts can try to strengthen property rights, and they can try to make sure that markets are functioning as best possible. despite all the burden that's put on them by the interventionists, they there still should be, oh, and that's why entrepreneurship is important. You should be able to find holes in their system so that you can, strengthen property rights. Like if you live in a small village, it might be a way of convincing the chief or somebody of how valuable it is that people, can keep their own property. And at least in that village, then they start to flourish. Or if there's not a market, where then maybe a couple people can get together and start a little market and then start encouraging people to come to it or to use it. So I don't know exactly. Every place is different, but what's not different are the economic laws. And so we know that those are powerful and stronger than any human interference. So if you can stay principled, be certain that these things work, and then try to find ways that you can implement them, that will help to alleviate the problem.
Okay, all right. Now I think I would just bring narrow us down to the text here. You've spoken largely about the macroeconomy, the divine economy model. Chapter 2 brings it down to the microeconomy, as in what really the individual citizens and in their business dealings, how they can really be able to, harness the benefits in the economy. So if you'll be kind to us to give us some understanding of the divine micro economy model. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that what was discovered in me developing this model and working on it is that what was perplexing economists since the beginning of time is, where does value come from? And so that's what this chapter basically helps people find where it comes from. And again, the reason I think that economics right now has been incapable of finding that is because they separated science and religion. They could never find the answer to that question. So as soon as you open it, put it back in its real place, where science and religion are in harmony, then you can start to discover things. And what is discovered is what attracts humans. What they end up valuing is the appearance of virtues or names and attributes of God. So if I buy a car, a red car, I'm not buying it because it's made out of metal and has rubber wheels. I'm buying because I think it's beautiful, or because I think it's powerful, or because I think it's fast, it has speed, or it's comfortable. Whatever it is, all of those are the reasons I buy it. And those are the qualities that it possesses in my eyes. As I'm looking at it subjectively, I'm valuing it subjectively, but those are the things that made me want to buy it. It's not because it's made out of metal or has rubber tires. It's because it has these attributes of God. So that's where value comes from. So once you know where value comes from, that's really important to know as a producer or as a consumer. So and so for instance, as an entrepreneur, if you were thinking of ways of improving the lives of people, you can kind of tailor your production towards what people value, and so it has that kind of a reach to it that once you understand where value comes from, it's very useful. And so like the examples that I gave in the chapter are more like recognizing that every one of these virtues, when they're practiced, they have a value that's expressible in the market. So, like I think I mentioned, the idea of patience. Patience is a virtue, okay, and it's a name of God. It's an attribute of God. Well, how does that show up in the market? Well, the example I gave is like we were just talking about the importance of capital. That capital is what is necessary for goods for the future. So if there's going to be any future for mankind, there has to be capital, and capital is what comes from savings. And savings is basically patience. You say, well, I'm gonna save this till later. That's patience. So it has a very practical expression in the world and in the economy. And every virtue is like that. I mean, I didn't give an example for every virtue, and every virtue that you put, there's probably many examples of how it has value in the market. But so that's what's so important about chapter 2 is it traces the source of value back to its origin, which are the appearance of the names and attributes of God in things.
Yeah. I think I was just about going there. There's various exemplifications you raised. I think they are fantastic. You've just been able to establish how some of these human economic models, or whatever we want to call them, are actually attributes of God, and how we can actually implement them in making our businesses or our entrepreneurial goals get to the point that we really want them to be. So once you've mentioned patience, I'll be glad if you can throw some light on two of the others briefly, so we can have the question time from the participants.
Well, we talked about excellence. Okay, so one of the concepts in economics is division of labor, meaning that if we also talked about everybody being unique. So if everybody's unique, and they have the freedom to express themselves and to develop as a human being, they're going to be different from everyone else, So whatever they end up contributing to the economy because of their expression of bringing value to the economy, it's going to be unique. It's a division of labor, okay? And so what's going to happen is, with regards to excellence, what people are going to do the best of what they like the best, So if I'm a really good at something and I enjoy it, then I'm going to just try to get better and better and better because I get more and more enjoyment out of it. So that's what excellence drives a person towards, and that's basically division of labor. And so what happens, and so what division of labor is, all of a sudden there's new products coming into the market that weren't there before, because this is a unique person who's striving for excellence, and they're creating something that only they could create, and so that's something new in the market. So that's where the economy just continues to be a place of richness.
Great. I'm really inspired. I'm very much interested in the flexibility bit. In what way can being flexible lead us to success in our economic pursuits?
Well, I gave an example, but like I said, I think every one of these attributes, each one of us here could probably come up with a different expression of how it would work and make a difference in the economy. So, if there's flexibility, one of the things that was recently very clear is when there was flexibility and people could then work from home,
Yeah.
whether before they had to go to a place, and then travel there. There's some necessity sometimes for people to get together. But if there's flexibility where, or just for instance, a woman who has some children at home, she can still work and be productive in whatever those extra skills she has, the unique skills she has. She could be a graphic artist or something, but she can't leave to go to a certain place, but she can do it from home. So if there's flexibility there, then there's so many more things that are possible. Again, the richness of the economy is more expressed when there's flexibility.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I find this very, very educating. In the sense that everything has been broken down in simple language, to make us even appreciate that the little business or economic policies that we as humans are implemented are actually divine and are very much connected with the God factor, if I should put it that way. At this point, I would be opening up the platform for some questions.
Okay.
If there are any, I'm sure there are people who want to ask questions and as well contribute to the discussion. Anyone ready to join in?
There's a hand up.
Mr. Nathaniel?
There's a hand up. John Nang Motete.
John Nano Tete. Mr. Nano Tete, kindly speak up.
He's muted.
He's muted. Oh.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me, please?
We can hear you.
All right, thank you. I just have a glance through about the book, and it looks quite interesting, including the factor of God in our economy. I have one question. He said on page 8 of his book that since capital is the most limiting factor, the movement or advancement of civilization depends heavily upon the structure of capital. And I don't understand why he said capital is the most limiting factor. If he can give us a clear understanding of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think the main reason is our life is finite. I mean, we live for just a short period, and so time is really a scarcity that we face, whereas capital is something that has a close connection to time, and so it's something that extends beyond ourselves. It's what, but the other thing that's so important about it is that's what is the link between the divine economy, the equilibrium force in the middle, and transformation. So it's the thing that leads to transformation in the economy is this capital, because the transformation is not happening right now. It's the capital is what's making goods for the future. That's the time element, and it bridges that gap. It's what does that, but by bridging that gap, what it does, it leads to transformation, and that is the goal. That's what we highly prize. Nobody wants to be exactly the same forever. No one wants to be where they are and never change. I mean, we're human beings. We want to improve. We want to grow. We want to transform. We want our surroundings to transform. And the thing that does that is capital, because it's good for the future. Right now, we are where we are. I mean, and so that's our limitation. but we can go beyond that limitation through, and we want to go beyond that. We highly value going beyond that. That's what we're shooting for, the transformation. And for the transformation to take place, it's capital that finds expression in various types of structure called the capital structure. There's some that are shorter, some that are longer. They're all in the future, and they're goods for the future. And that's, it's the most limiting because here's an example. There's probably right now amongst us, there's probably 100 different ideas that we have of what we could do. You know, we have a new idea. We have an idea of how things could get better. But what's going to keep us from doing it? Maybe only one of those ideas will ever have enough capital to be actually put into effect. You know, if we all had unlimited capital, all those ideas, we'll be putting them all into practice right now.
Yeah.
But we can't, because we don't have the resources, and we don't have the resources because capital is limited. And so that's what is so beautiful about when the divine economy is functioning the way it's supposed to, then all the signals are correct. The signals that are picked up in the market, because there's knowledge flowing through the market. And if they're not being interfered with, if the market's not being interfered with, those signals are correct. And if the signals are correct, then there's more chance that someone's going to use capital in a way that doesn't get wasted. We don't want to waste capital. That's what's happening all around the world in extreme degrees right now. Capital is being wasted like crazy. And it basically that affects the future for mankind. We're going to have to go through some hard times to get back to because capital has been wasted. And anyway, so that's, I think I might have explained it by just saying that it's what leads to transformation. That's why it's highly valued, and because that's one end of it. The other end of it is it's limited because the only source of capital is savings. So if people aren't saving, then there's no capital. If there's no capital, so it's limited on one end because savings is low. People, and why don't people save? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but just think in these terms. If the world around you is unstable, you don't know what the future holds, and it's even maybe worrisome what the future is going to be like. You're not going to put money away. You're going to put less money away compared to if you knew the future was good. You'd put more money away, so you'd have more savings. So when the world is in turmoil, people save less, because they're not sure whether it's going to do any good anyways. So it's constrained from savings, and yet it's the most powerful, most magnificent feature of an advancing economy. So that's why it's so limited. That's why it has that constraint on it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bruce. Do we have any other question, contribution?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Can I proceed?
Yes, please, you can.
Okay. So I'm on page 13. It talks about that begins the chapter 2 on watching your dreams come true. There's one particular thing that you emphasize from the beginning, which is the uncertainty nature of taking actions, because there's no guarantee that you are going to succeed. So with that, and so anytime you are looking at the natural economy, humans taking actions and leaving it to try and error for them to fail and succeed and whatnot, the difficulty that comes with it is the interventions, because most of the times we feel if government intervenes, then there's not going to be failures. So how do we reconcile that in a divine economy? Because you mentioned that interventions are distractions in divine economy. Thank you.
Okay, so it's similar to the idea of profit and loss. I mean, what drives a person to try to make a profit? The so the I'm trying to think of the best way to use it. Okay, so we know that one diagram in the first chapter showed acting and knowing, this proverbial fountain of knowledge. So this is acting and knowing, acting and knowing, acting and knowing. That's learning. That's something that happens. People learn from, they take an action and then they learn from it, and they take an action and they learn from it. So that is interfered with if they're for some reason they're not learning what they should learn. I mean, if they take an action and then they don't really see the results of that action because there's intervention, then they're missing something that they could have learned. So that's one aspect. At the individual level, I think they're gonna not have the learning experience that they could potentially have if they're affected by intervention. At the macro level, just in the practical terms, it's sort of like because there's limitations. For one thing to get subsidized or favored, something else has to be affected negatively. For something to be affected positively, something's got to be affected negatively. So the person who's affected positively, they're happy. The person who's affected negatively, they're unhappy. Those two might not know each other. They may never encounter each other. They may never. But here's the ultimate truth on interventionism. It's a cause of injustice. Would it be just? Let me put it in these terms: the person who is positively affected, and there's a person who's negatively affected. Would either of those, if they were being sincere, and loving human beings, would they think that's just? That I'm being benefited and you're being penalized? There could be someone who's saying, "Oh well, that's okay. I don't care." But in general, if they were just doing it on an ethics basis, they would say, "Well, that's not very fair for me to get this and them to have to pay for it, or them." So there's this joint there, and it's an injustice, and that's what all intervention does, because it's someone making an assumption that they know more than the divine economy knows. They know more than the unhampered market knows. And so they're going to impose this on there. And so that limited knowledge ends up affecting someone else negatively. So I don't know if that answered your question, but ultimately at the individual level, there's a learning process that is interfered with. You don't learn as much. So let's look at the person who's affected negatively. They were going to start a business, but they don't have any capital because the capital went somewhere else. Otherwise, they would have had access to capital. But because capital is limited, it went one place and not the other. So this person who had a good idea but didn't have capital, they didn't learn. They didn't have the opportunity to learn, because it never got off the ground. But the other person, they may have thought they had a good idea and they had it subsidized, so they think they're learning, but they're really not learning the whole market. They're learning this little segment, so their learning is affected too. I don't know if that explains it, but there is definitely a problem in both at the macro and the micro level when there's intervention.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. time is almost up, but we'll make room for another question or another contribution. Then we can end the session. As we wait for the next, for any question or any contribution, I would like to inform you that before we close, there will be a link that will be posted in the comment section. Kindly fill it, and you would get what will be given to you later. Right. Are there any more questions, contributions? Well, a lot of listening has taken place. First, I want to thank you, Mr. Bruce, for spending time with us 1 hour, talking to us about the divine economy model. Very, very insightful, very, very educative, very, very practical as well. Personally, I think I've taken some pointers from what you have just delivered. Maybe just to give some brief or insight as to what will be happening the next time we meet, just a summary of the chapter 2 you have presented here. Be a producer so you have sources of income. Be alert to what, when, where, and how people find value. Most likely, you will have many roles to play as an entrepreneur, as a skilled laborer, capitalist, as an owner of a resource. Learn to master all these. And finally, co-create with others to accomplish goals. This brings us to the end of our first or maiden discussion on this very, very insightful book, Divine Economy Model. I'm sure the next time we meet, we shall explore chapters 3 and 4, and get a fuller and a better understanding of this document. Makwasi Jemfi, I was your moderator, and maybe I'm sure Mr. Bruce has some final words for us. Then we shall call it a day. Mr. Bruce, your final words.
I'm grateful that you're interested in what the book says, and I think that everybody will benefit from looking at it and keeping reviewing it, looking at the models, keeping those visualizations in their mind when they're trying to do things in the economy. I think they'll learn more every time they read them and look at them, and they'll also be able to put them to practice, I think.
Yes. Thank you. Before you go, please do well to check out Yafo on all our social media platforms. Yafo Web, at Yafo Web, you should find us. And you can begin a hashtag discussion Yafo events. This one will be there on all social media platforms, so we can get the message across to as many people as possible. Mr. Nathaniel, do you have any announcement for us or any matter to be talked about?
Okay, let me use it.
Okay, I'm sure he's trying to get this.
I have some announcements. Oh. I'm getting echoes, so I think it's better now.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. We've put the link in the chat. You can check the chat. So we promise to give everybody internet data for joining this meeting, free internet data. So fill that form. You put your expectation, what you are taking from this event. You put those are the information you're going to get, and then you put your number that you want to receive the free internet data on, so that after here, the Yafo staff will work on sending you your free internet data. Do not share this form with anybody who didn't participate in this event, because we have the data, and once we find out, we will not pay to that person any free internet. Okay, and I believe today we have all enjoyed the intellectual discourse, and we appreciate the time of Bruce joining us and giving us details of divine economy model. And from today, at least me personally, from here, we all understand that venturing in entrepreneurship is something that God has given us, which is within, it's a power that is within that we need to make it come out to the glory of God, something like that. So let us not be afraid of the failures, but rather they are all lessons. It is not failure at all. So I think that's what I'll add. Thank you very much
Good.
as well, and thank you to Akwesi for moderating such a wonderful event, and you did a fantastic
Thanks,
work.
sir.
Great.
Great. There are a few comments here. Mr. John Motete says, I just love the book, Divine Economy Model. He appreciates the content. So, Mr. Bruce, here's your number one fan already here. Mr. Sari Manuel says the book is a bit technical, especially for those without the economics background. But the concept given examples, we are getting it. So, apart from the diagrams and all, which some of us, we just had to try use our JHS knowledge to apply. Generally, the explanations have given us some insight. So, Asari Emmanuel, you have really mentioned, spoken the minds of many people. So, Kwekwa Samoa, I think your point will be duly noted. And the next time we begin our session, I think we will address your concern on justice and unity, the introduction of justice and unity. So, Kwekwa Samoa, we've taken due notice of that. So on this note, I think we have done time just a few minutes after 8, and we are grateful once again to Mr. Bruce. And I would have to acknowledge our partners who supported this. Quickly, let me mention them. Atlas Network has been very supportive. Thank you. KingCell has been supportive as well, and Divine Economy Model. We thank you all so much. And of course, Yafu for bringing this to us. Have a good evening and a great weekend, all of us.
Thank you.